Today we have Patrick Lupinski, who's joining us. He is the Managing Director of Social at Sidon Advertising, and we're going to talk about the importance of local communication with today's consumer. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
So Patrick, we know that in today's day and age that the whole idea of behavioral marketing and one-on-one advertising with the consumer is now possible because of data and technology. Talk to us a little bit about why local is important even to big national advertisers.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the idea of having a cell phone, the idea of social media, all this technology now, we have all this data and all this information, and the way we consume content these days is all on our personal devices. So as an advertiser, as a content generator, I need to figure out now how to create content that's relevant from not only just a personal perspective, but also from a geography perspective.
So it's interesting that years ago, advertisers would spend millions, tens of millions of dollars trying to reach a mass audience, but never really certain that they were speaking to the people that were interested in buying their products. Today, you have a resolution for that.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of data out there in terms of being able to reach your consumer at the perfect time, the perfect place. You watch a television spot, you have no idea whether or not the person watching is actually going to take an action.
You know, it's really interesting because now you have the measurement tools because of data and technology. You have the tools that actually prove that these are people who are interested in the message and have responded in a certain way.
Right, especially from a social media perspective. You have real-time data on engagement and whether or not your message is actually resonating with that specific audience. You know, I work with a client that has it's a regional client, about a 100-mile radius in terms of the people that they serve. But within those 100 miles, they have 20 different types of population pools. And so when we're developing content, we're targeting zip codes, we're targeting, settings that people have, language settings on their Facebook, for example. So if we have a Hispanic population and we really want our message to resonate with them, we'll develop content in Spanish, and we'll actually target those specific zip codes, those settings on Facebook. And then from an engagement perspective, we'll be able to see whether or not our content is actually resonating. But it doesn't stop there. It's not just about engagement on social media, because obviously, we have business goals as well. So when I look at some of our more regional clients, I want to make sure that they have their whole digital persona set up. I want to make sure that they own all those channels.
Right. Patrick, you were mentioning zip codes, but the reality of it is you can target neighborhoods well beyond zip codes.
Absolutely. I mean, and even within mobile advertising, you can geofence certain blocks and whatnot. And there has been research done that basically shows that advertising and display ads, show a higher click-through rate if the message is a little bit more focused. Right. Upwards of 4, 5, 8% sometimes.
Can you give us an example, a case study of someone who's enjoyed that success?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was an example. L'Oreal did a promotion partnership with Dwayne Reed. They were promoting one of their products. And what they did was they basically developed this app, as well as mobile advertising, that then just advertised that they had these same-day consultations with a beautician. And people can actually go on the website, they can go on the app, and make these same-day appointments, go in, and they actually saw upwards of 150% increase in their sales of that specific product.
150%?
150%, yeah. This global brand really advertising on a much more micro level to push sales, and that you can actually quantify the ROI there in a way that I'm not sure that you possibly could with a TV spot.
So while digital is growing by leaps and bounds, and we're seeing that it's beginning to surpass the linear world, do you find that a lot of clients still are not completely convinced or comfortable abandoning the linear strategy?
I think more and more starting to warm up to the idea that there is such a thing as a funnel, where you have mass media in terms of a large TV spot that can possibly run during these tentpole events, for example, the Super Bowl, right? But what I'm seeing more and more of are more regional markets, TV spots that play in more regional markets. There might be a broader message on a national or global scale, but what I'm seeing and what I really love that's happening is brands are starting to recognize that they need to create more assets that do really address those different micro pockets around the country with different messaging. Obviously, the strategy can be the same, but the messaging, and the execution varies so that it's actually applicable and relevant to those people who are watching it within those smaller pockets around the country. And so what I'm loving is that when you're searching on your phone, when you're like just on Instagram, Facebook, or wherever else, you're kind of in discovery mode. And so the brands that are doing it well, they're listening to like your habits. They're paying attention to it, and they're serving up content and advertising that's relevant to you. And I appreciate that.
So I find it very interesting that a lot of people complain about the advertising that is sent to them. And wouldn't we all be much happier to have advertising that was absolutely relevant to us?
Absolutely. And those companies that are doing it well are seeing click-through rates that like no one else has ever expected, anywhere between 5 and 8%, compared to the national average of like 0.03%. From like a very general perspective.
That's amazing.
So it's huge, and it might be a little bit more work, but I think the brands would be very surprised happily on the return.
Patrick, thanks for joining us. Very insightful. We hope you'll come back and talk to us again.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks everyone for stopping by. We hope you'll join us next time where we have one of the world's experts in the beauty category giving us insights in today's consumerism. So, anyway, was this fun for you?
GlassView, video advertising reimagined.